Two strangers get ditched on the same night. What starts as small talk in a cafe turns into something real. But can a connection born from heartbreak survive when life pulls them in different directions? Hello family, welcome to Storytime with Imzi. Please subscribe and like, it means the world to us. Also share this video to your friends and loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. The clink of cutlery and soft jazz floated through Café Bella Vita, where time seemed to stretch itself out lazily under the golden warmth of overhead fairy lights. Outside, the sky was settling into twilight, bruised purple and peach, while inside, laughter and conversation painted the atmosphere with intimacy. Every table was full, except two. Harper Rhodes sat at the smaller one near the window, her chin resting lightly on her palm, her eyes flickering toward the entrance every time the bell above the door chimed. Her hair was curled at the ends, still smelling faintly of honey and heat from the salon visit earlier that afternoon. She wore a pale blue wrap dress with a neckline she'd debated in the mirror for 10 minutes. Elegant, but not too serious. Date-worthy. 34 minutes. She'd counted every one. The man, Jason? Jordan, had messaged her that morning with a flirty, confident, looking forward to tonight. Now her phone screen sat dim on the table, blank and accusing. Her glass of water was already half empty, beads of condensation sliding down its side like they were trying to escape the tension. She picked it up and sipped again. Slow. Controlled. Don't look desperate. But she already knew she was being stood up. The waiter had come by twice, smiling with just enough sympathy to sting. Across the room, seated beneath a shelf lined with dusty wine bottles, William Grant rotated the stem of a red wine glass slowly between his fingers. He wore a collared shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows, tie tucked into his front pocket like he wasn't sure whether the night was formal or not. His eyes, a warm gray flecked with mischief and mild panic, were locked on his phone screen. He refreshed the chat. Again. Still nothing from Sophie. He looked up, then down again, then at the untouched second glass across from him. He'd ordered the wine when he arrived. Nervous energy turned impulsive decision. She'd said she liked Merlot. At least, she had in her last message. Which was, 2 days ago? 45 minutes. He'd sat for 45 minutes like a well-dressed monument to misplaced optimism. Dude, she's not coming, he muttered to himself, rubbing his temple. And then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw her. Not Sophie, but the woman by the window, also alone, also glancing toward the door with fading hope. She was beautiful, yes, but more than that, there was something familiar about her frustration. When she called the waiter over, her voice was polite, but tight with defeat. I think I'll just head out. William did the same at nearly the same moment. Actually, yeah, I think that's it for me too. The waiter, caught in the synchrony of two abandoned hopes, looked between them like he was witnessing a twist in a play. Their eyes met. Harper offered the faintest shrug, the universal expression of "Can you believe this?" William smiled. Looks like we've both been ghosted. She hesitated, then let out a breath of a laugh. Apparently it's a group event now. He stood, wine bottle in hand, and gestured toward his table. Would it be weird if I invited you to help me not waste this overpriced bottle? Harper glanced at her half-full water, then at the second glass he hadn't touched. Her lips curled up, wry but amused. That depends. Do you always offer drinks to women who've just been emotionally mugged? Only the ones who look like they were stood up by a guy named Chad. Close. Jason. Close enough, he said. I'm William. Harper. And just like that, the two empty chairs were no longer empty. The restaurant hadn't changed. The music still played, the lights still glowed, the buzz of other people's love lives still hummed in the background. But something about that corner of Café Bella Vita had shifted. Where two disappointments had sat moments before, now there was a flicker of something new. Not love, not yet. Just shared defeat, a glass of wine, and a spark of curiosity. And sometimes that's how it begins. The cork made a soft pop, barely heard over the lazy jazz spilling from the overhead speakers. William poured the Merlot, his movements careful, almost ceremonial, like he didn't want to spook the moment. Harper watched him with a slanted smile, one eyebrow raised. You pour wine like a man trying to impress a sommelier, she said, half teasing. He laughed, a low, genuine sound. That obvious? You're being judged. Well, in that case, he handed her a glass. Tell me if it's too forward. I propose we toast. To shared embarrassment. Harper held up her glass. To catastrophic expectations and mediocre men. Their glasses clinked with a delicate chime, then parted. She took a sip, tilted her head in mild surprise. Okay, I'll admit it. This is better than the wine I was pretending not to drink alone. William grinned. Small victories. For a while they didn't speak. Not out of awkwardness, but out of comfort. Harper leaned back in her chair, letting her shoulders relax for the first time that night. William tapped his fingers lightly against the table, watching the condensation race down his glass. It was the kind of silence that stretches, easy and unforced. Then she said, So, William, what brought you to the battlefield of online dating? He smirked. Desperation. Masochism. A bet with a coworker. You. Loneliness. Boredom. Possibly a moment of emotional weakness during a wine-fueled scroll session. He laughed again, really laughed this time. The kind that made the waiter passing by look over and smile. Harper found herself laughing too, hand to her mouth like she couldn't quite believe she was enjoying herself. You ever wonder if we've all collectively lost our minds? She asked. Only every time I get a message that says, What are you looking for on here? Serious or fun? Like those are the only two options. I got one that just said, You breathe well. Wanna hang? William winced. Oof. I hope you unmatched. Oh, I did. Immediately. But I respected the creativity. Their stories spilled out between sips of wine and shared appetizers that neither of them ordered with anyone else in mind. William told her about being a high school English teacher and how he used Shakespeare to teach flirting. Because kids will listen to Romeo before they'll listen to me. Harper told him about her event design studio and how she once had to hide a bride's mother because she showed up wearing a white gown. I should have just given her a veil and made it a double wedding, she said, rolling her eyes. That's chaos, William said, grinning. Beautiful, unfiltered chaos. Time warped again. Only now it wasn't stretching awkwardly. It was rushing. The couple at the next table got their dessert. The lights dimmed a little more. Outside, the street lamps blinked to life like sleepy fireflies. Harper glanced at her phone, surprised. Wow, we've been here almost 2 hours. William followed her gaze. I guess we have. They both sat for a moment, reluctant to acknowledge what that meant. Then Harper said, quieter now, You know, this could have been a really awful night. William met her eyes. It almost was. A beat passed. The music shifted to something slower. Warm. Familiar. And then William stood. Come on. What? He nodded toward the little open space near the bar. It's not a real restaurant dance floor, but there's no law against slow dancing near fake plants. Harper hesitated. Her lips parted like she wanted to say no, like she needed to hold on to the rules of strangers. But then she didn't. She stood. He held out his hand. She took it. Their fingers laced together as though they'd done it 100 times. As the music wound around them, they swayed, awkward at first, then easier. Two people who were supposed to be with someone else, now choosing, in that moment, to be with each other. Harper rested her cheek against his shoulder. Not because it was romantic, but because it felt safe. And safe felt rare. The late morning sun spilled through the cafe's wide windows like a welcome intrusion, casting golden shapes on the hardwood floor. The little bell above the door gave its cheerful jingle as Harper stepped inside, brushing a curl from her face. She scanned the room once, then spotted him. William sat by the window, exactly where he said he'd be. He was bent slightly forward, flipping through a worn copy of Leaves of Grass, a coffee already half drunk at his elbow. He looked relaxed, a little tousled, a little late to the idea of a comb, and entirely like someone who hadn't expected this odd second meeting to happen. Harper approached with a smile tucked just behind her lips. Whitman at brunch. That's a bold move. He looked up, caught by surprise, and stood. Harper, you came. I owed you a croissant, she said, holding up the little brown paper bag like a peace offering. He grinned, motioning for her to sit. I wasn't sure if you'd actually text. I wasn't either. She settled into the chair across from him. The tension from their first meeting, the kind born from awkwardness, from being ditched and humiliated, was gone. What replaced it was softer. curious, like two people holding onto a shared secret neither of them could name. He pushed a fresh cup of coffee toward her. I didn't know how you took it. So I guessed. No sugar. Little cream. She sipped, raised her brows. Damn. You're either very lucky or very observant. I'll let you decide which sounds more charming. She leaned back, eyes scanning the people bustling around them. Students hunched over laptops. A couple whispering in corners. Life went on, but Harper felt still. I have to admit something, she said after a pause. I almost didn't text you. Not because I didn't want to, but because it felt like cheating somehow. William didn't flinch. He just nodded. Your ex? Yeah. I mean, it's over. It's been over. But when someone leaves a scar, it's hard to let anyone touch the skin around it. His expression softened, eyes darkening with something unspoken. That makes sense. For what it's worth, I didn't think this coffee meant we were eloping. Harper laughed, short, bright. Good. Because I didn't bring a dress. He closed the book in his lap, carefully, like he didn't want to disturb the air between them. You want to hear something ridiculous? Always. I almost didn't come that night. I had this weird gut feeling Sophie was going to cancel. I was already halfway back to my car when I saw you across the room. You looked, he hesitated. Not sad. Just tired of trying. Like someone I didn't want to be alone. She looked at him then. Really looked. His posture, his honesty. The kind of man who didn't try to impress you. Just showed up. Yeah, she said quietly. That's exactly how I felt. They sat in a quiet hum of clinking cups and low conversation. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was reflective, like both of them were still unraveling the mystery of why this all felt easy. After a moment, Harper leaned forward. So tell me something about you that's not a dating app cliché. He tilted his head, considering. All right. I cry during animated movies. Examples. Up, obviously. Inside Out. And don't even get me started on Coco. She chuckled. Okay, you're officially more emotionally evolved than half the guys I've dated. Your turn, he said, raising an eyebrow. She thought for a moment. I still sleep with the fan on even in winter. The noise helps. And I talk to my plants like they're roommates. William smiled like he'd just found his favorite part of the day. That explains why your vibe is very nurturing chaos. Harper laughed into her cup. I'll take that as a compliment. They talked for another hour. About books, childhoods, regret, healing. He asked her what her happiest memory was. She asked what his biggest fear was. Neither of them blinked when the questions turned deeper. Neither of them shied away. By the time they stood to leave, the cafe was thinning out and the lunch crowd was starting to trickle in. Outside, the wind tugged playfully at her coat as they stood by her car. He looked down at his shoes, then back up. So if I said I'd like to do this again, would that scare you off? She hesitated. Not because she didn't want to, but because her heart was still relearning trust. I don't know, she said honestly. But I want to find out. William nodded slowly, understanding. Then we go slow. Harper opened her car door, then paused. She looked at him, eyes soft. You know, that wine really wasn't wasted. He smiled. Neither was that night. As she drove away, the faintest tug of warmth bloomed behind her ribs. Something had started. Not with a spark. Not with a kiss. But with presence. Patience. And coffee. The Sunday market on Rosewood Street was a carnival of colors and voices. Stalls spilling over with wildflowers and spices, local artists hawking hand-painted mugs, dogs pulling at leashes, and the scent of cinnamon pastries drifting like temptation through the breeze. Harper wove through the crowd, a paper bag of sourdough tucked under one arm, her scarf fluttering behind her like a flag. She felt light. For once, the weight she didn't know she'd been carrying wasn't pressing on her shoulders. And then, a voice. From her past. Unmistakable. Harper. Her spine went cold before she turned. There he was. Ethan. Wearing that same olive green jacket, hair still tousled like he'd styled it with one half-hearted swipe of his hand. He looked the same, and somehow completely different. Maybe it was just that she'd changed. She managed a blink. Ethan. I thought that was you, he said, stepping forward. His smile had a careful shape to it, like it was practiced now. Wow. You look great. Thanks, she said, voice neutral. Controlled. There was an awkward beat, Too many memories pressing into the present like uninvited guests. Ethan shoved his hands into his coat pockets. You still live around here? I do, she said. You? Back for a bit. Visiting family. Thought I'd check out the market. He looked like he wanted to say more. Like he'd been waiting for this moment and didn't know what to do with it now that it had arrived. She had no idea what to give him. Closure? Conversation? Forgiveness? He finally broke the silence. Listen, about how things ended. No, Harper said quietly but firmly. Let's not. Ethan blinked. I just think we left things. We did. We left them. And I'd like them to stay that way. She didn't wait for his answer. She turned and walked away, legs steady even as her chest fluttered like a paper lantern caught in wind. She didn't look back. Not until she reached the corner and spotted William, standing by a little flower cart with a dahlia tucked between his fingers. His brows lifted when he saw her. You okay? He asked, instantly sensing the shift in her. She nodded, a little breathless. Yeah, just a ghost. William didn't push. He simply offered her the flower. I figured these looked like you. She took it, grounding herself in the present again. You always carry backup flowers for emotional emergencies? Only for people who talk to their plants. Harper smiled, but it was faint, distracted. Would you hate me if I asked to skip the market and just walk? He offered his arm. Lead the way. They walked through quiet streets lined with ivy-draped walls and old bookstores that looked like they'd been carved into the city's bones. The world faded a little, slowed down. Eventually, Harper spoke. I ran into my ex, Ethan. William didn't react with jealousy or judgment, just patience. Last time I saw him, she continued, he told me I was too much. Too passionate. Too quick to feel things. That I made everything into a big deal. William's voice was low but certain. Sounds like he couldn't handle real things. Harper stopped walking. She turned to him, eyes searching his. Do I seem like too much to you? William stepped closer. You seem like someone who doesn't pretend. And if that's too much, then I'm not enough. That quiet statement hit harder than any grand declaration. It wasn't poetry. It was truth. She looked away, jaw tight. You're very good at saying the right thing. He laughed, but there was something distant about it now. Not always. Harper frowned. What do you mean? William hesitated. His thumb grazed the edge of his palm like he was trying to decide how much to reveal. I've messed things up before, he said. Not in a dramatic Hollywood way. Just slowly. By keeping parts of myself locked up. By being too careful, too afraid. She was silent, letting him open the drawer. There was someone, he added. Long time ago. She told me I made her feel invisible. I didn't mean to. I just didn't know how to show up back then. You think you're still that guy? I think I'm trying not to be, he said. With you. The air between them shifted again, fragile but honest. Harper reached for his hand. Then don't disappear. William didn't smile this time. He didn't need to. He simply held her hand tighter. They stood like that in the golden hour. Two people no longer haunted by who didn't show up for them, but quietly learning what it meant to show up for each other. The walk back was slow, their hands never parting. The ghost had come, but it hadn't stayed. It was just after 9 p.m. when the first drops hit the glass. Fat, lazy raindrops that wandered down William's living room window like they had nowhere urgent to be. Outside, the city shimmered under wet streetlights, and thunder rolled like distant applause. Inside, the apartment glowed with soft amber lamps and the flicker of a candle on the coffee table. William was in the kitchen, barefoot, slicing apples with a practiced ease, the kind of movement that came from muscle memory and not thought. The smell of cinnamon filled the room, his attempt at a homemade pie, though he'd admitted with a sheepish smile that he bought the crust. Harper, curled on the couch in one of his oversized hoodies, watched the rain in silence. She'd kicked off her boots and tucked her feet under herself, wine glass balanced on the armrest. It was the kind of night that begged for secrets. The kind of night that peeled people open, layer by layer. This place, she said eventually, it feels like it belongs to someone who reads more than they talk. William looked up from the cutting board. That's either a compliment or a warning. It's both, she said, grinning. But I like it. It feels like you. He brought the plate of apple slices over and sat beside her. Their knees brushed, casual, electric. She took a slice. So, do you bring all your dates here and impress them with poorly folded blankets and dried eucalyptus? Only the ones who show up, he said gently. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't heavy either. Just a truth passed between them like a candle passed in the dark. Harper turned to him. I'm still waiting for the part where this gets complicated. Oh, don't worry, he said, biting into an apple. Complications usually arrive uninvited, like extended family or plumbing issues. She laughed, and the moment lightened. But only for a moment. Then, softly, she said, I had a panic attack last month. William didn't move. I was sitting at a wedding, she continued, voice calm and distant, and I realized I couldn't breathe. Not because I was sad. Not even because of Ethan. Just because it all looked so performative. Like everyone was playing dress up for a story they weren't even sure they believed in. He studied her face. The quiet strength in her eyes. The way she shared darkness like someone who had already survived the worst of it. I get that, he said. Do you? He hesitated. Then, there was a night I walked out on a relationship without saying goodbye. Left a note. Just a sentence. I don't know how to be loved by you. And it was true. I didn't. I didn't know how to let it in. Harper didn't speak. She reached for his hand instead. They sat like that as the rain thickened outside, the candle flickering shadows on the walls. The room felt heavier and warmer at the same time, like their truths were logs tossed onto a fire they hadn't realized they were building together. Then William stood. Come with me. She blinked. Where? He pulled her to her feet. Just trust me. They climbed to the rooftop. The rain had slowed to a misty drizzle, the kind that kissed skin instead of soaked it. The city stretched out before them like a painting smudged by breath. The hum of tires on wet asphalt, the occasional distant shout, the low rumble of thunder. All of it framed the silence between their words. Harper turned her face to the sky. We'll get sick. Worth it, William said, watching her. She opened her eyes and looked at him. What if we're just two people clinging to a moment because the world let us down at the same time? He stepped closer. Then I'll cling with you. For as long as it's real. She stared at him, not blinking. The mist had dampened her hair, curled the edges of her lips, and softened her defenses. Then she kissed him. It wasn't a fairy tale kiss. It was hesitant at first. Quiet, like she was testing the temperature of something deeper. And then it grew warmer, bolder. His hands found her waist. Hers gripped the back of his neck like she wasn't just holding him. She was anchoring herself. When they finally broke apart, breath mingling, she whispered, That was either a very good idea or a terrible one. William grinned, rain dripping from his lashes. Let's give it enough time to be both. Monday mornings always had a bite, but this one came with more than the usual sting of alarm clocks and burnt toast. Harper sat at the edge of her bed, fingers curled around a half-drunk cup of coffee, staring blankly at the buzzing phone on her nightstand. One missed call, 2 voicemails, 1 text message, all from the same name, Marla Redding, her former editor at Solstice magazine in New York. She hadn't heard from Marla in nearly a year, since Harper had left the city and the high-speed, cutthroat climb of journalism behind. She'd needed to breathe, to bleed without the world watching. But now Marla wanted to talk, and that could only mean one thing. Opportunity. That evening, William opened his door with a lopsided smile and a vinyl record playing something jazzy and old in the background. You look like someone who's either had a breakthrough or a breakdown. Harper walked in and set her bag down quietly. Maybe both. He paused, reading her eyes. She didn't draw it out. I got offered a job. Full-time writing feature stories. Big stuff. Profiles. Investigations. Editorial control. His eyebrows lifted. Harper, that's amazing. It's in New York. Silence. Heavy. Instant. The record kept spinning. A trumpet cried out a soft note. Rain started to tap against the windows again, as if the sky remembered last night and wasn't ready to let go. William nodded, his smile flickering. Well, I guess they finally realized what they were missing. She managed a soft laugh, but it didn't reach her eyes. I thought I wanted this. I worked for this. He sat on the edge of the couch, elbows on his knees. And now? I don't know. She looked down. Now, I think about rooftops and cinnamon, and someone who listens without trying to fix me. William looked at her then, really looked. You don't have to choose between purpose and love, Harper. But sometimes life makes you time them. She nodded slowly. I think that's what scares me. He stood, walking toward her. I'd never ask you to stay. I know, but I also won't lie. It's going to hurt like hell if you go. The air between them felt like a hallway lined with open doors. Every word carried an echo. Every heartbeat was a step closer to a decision no one wanted to make. She reached out, brushing his arm. What about you? What are you chasing? He hesitated. I've been running from noise most of my life. I finally found quiet here. With you. Tears threatened at the edges of her vision, but she blinked them away. Do we break this before it breaks us? She asked. He stepped forward, resting his forehead against hers. Or do we risk it and find out it doesn't break at all? There was no answer that night. No fight. No promises. Just two people holding a moment like a match, brief, beautiful, burning. Outside, the rain didn't stop, but neither of them moved to close the window. New York smelled the same, coffee, asphalt, ambition. The skyline blinked in silver and steel, towering like a challenge, like it remembered Harper and was daring her to try again. She stood at the edge of her new apartment's rooftop, the wind biting at her coat, her phone clutched in one hand. It had been 3 weeks, 21 days, 5 late-night phone calls, dozens of unsent texts, and one postcard from William that said simply, "Still watering your peace lily. She misses your chaos." Harper smiled every time she read it. She'd pinned it above her desk at the magazine office, right between a photo of her with her old writing crew and a headline mock-up that read, "The City That Never Sleeps and Why I Finally Did." But still, every morning she woke up wondering, what is he doing right now? Does he think about me the way I think about him? Are we fading, or just waiting? Back in the small city, William had fallen into a rhythm without realizing it. Coffee at Marlowe's Cafe. Mornings at the bookstore. Evenings replaying voice notes Harper left him. Funny ones, tired ones, some that just had the sound of city traffic behind her voice as she said, "Tell me something real." He told her stories in reply. Sometimes simple, sometimes quiet, but always real. One night, as he sat with his guitar on the couch, he pressed record. "I don't know if this means anything," he began, voice low and a little raw. "But since you left, I've started cooking properly again. I even made the pie right this time. You'd be proud. You'd also probably laugh because I forgot flour and used powdered sugar by accident on the first try. My kitchen looked like a drug bust. Anyway, I miss you. And I'm trying not to say that like a weight, just like a truth." He didn't send it. Not yet. Harper's days were busy. She wrote a feature piece on street artists in Harlem. She stayed late in the editing suite. She drank overpriced chai lattes and wore heels that blistered. But every night, she came home, kicked off the day, and sank into the couch with the silence. One Thursday, she got out early. The sun was warm, unusually kind. She wandered into a bookstore in Brooklyn and found herself in the poetry aisle. Her fingers paused on a slim volume titled Letters Never Sent. She opened it randomly and read, "I loved you so quietly the world didn't hear. And maybe that's why it let us end." Something broke softly in her chest. She called William. He answered before the second ring. "Hey," he said, voice breathless. Hopeful. "I don't know what I'm doing," Harper said. "Me neither. I'm scared that this was a fluke, that we only worked because we didn't have real life between us." William was quiet. Then, but what if real life is the test that proves we're real too? She closed her eyes, resting her head against a shelf of strangers' words. "I don't want to look back on this and wonder." "Then don't," he said. "Come back, even if just for a weekend. Remind us." She hesitated. "Then, next Friday. I'll take the train." He exhaled a laugh. "I'll be at the station." For the first time in 3 weeks, her heartbeat stopped pacing. It stood still, waiting. The train pulled into the station with a low screech of metal and momentum, the kind that made everything else pause for just a breath. Harper stood near the door, her heart thudding loud enough that it seemed to echo against the glass. She gripped the strap of her weekend bag with fingers that couldn't decide if they were trembling from nerves or anticipation. She stepped onto the platform. It was drizzling. Of course it was. The town always had a flair for symbolic weather. Then she saw him. William stood under the metal awning, wearing that same navy blue jacket she used to mock for being too serious. His hair was damp, curls pressed flat from the mist. In his hands, a paper bag crumpled slightly at the corners, with 2 croissants poking out the top. When he saw her, he didn't move right away. He just looked and smiled. The kind of smile that says, "You're real. You're here. You came back." Harper didn't walk. She ran. Straight into his arms. He dropped the bag without a second thought and caught her, lifting her off the ground as she wrapped herself around him like a memory finding a home again. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. They didn't need to. When they finally pulled apart, she cupped his face with rain-dampened hands. "Hi. Hi," he whispered, eyes crinkling. "I was going to bring flowers, but they didn't look like you. You brought croissants. That's better." He grinned. "Still warm." "Barely." She leaned in and kissed him, softly at first, and then with all the weight of the weeks they'd been apart. The train rumbled behind them, but neither turned to look. For that moment, the only direction was forward. Later that night, they sat on the rooftop again. It was quieter than before. The sky had cleared into stars, and Harper had kicked off her boots, curling up beside William in an old wool blanket. His arm was draped around her shoulders, her head tucked perfectly into the space where his chest met his neck. She looked up at him. "I told Marla I'm not ready for full-time. I'll freelance. From here. Or from wherever we end up." He blinked. "You're serious?" She nodded. "I'm not giving up the life I want. I'm just changing what I thought it had to look like." William's expression softened. "So, this isn't just a visit?" She took his hand. "This is me choosing you. Not because I fell, but because I landed." He didn't say anything right away. He just pulled her closer and kissed the top of her head. "You scare the hell out of me, Harper." She smirked. "Good. That means it's real." They stayed like that, breathing in sync, hearts no longer trying to outrun time or distance. And for once, they weren't the ones being stood up by love. They were the ones showing up. Together.